But first this morning, as you would expect, Boris Johnson's resignation is making all of the front pages, with the Mirror saying that he's clinging on for one last party. Yes, we shall talk about that. Joining me now, the Sunday Times political editor Caroline Wheeler and editor of the Daily Mirror, Alison Phillips. Caroline, first of all, I wondered what you made of that speech. There wasn't really an apology in there, was there?
No, I think it's the kind of speech that we've come to expect from this Prime Minister. There was a sort of sense that there was no real contrition for what had occurred. I mean, there have been numerous scandals that have rocked Downing Street over the last couple of months. And really, there was a sense that he was trying to blame everybody else for his travails, talking about a kind of herd mentality and saying when the herd moves, the herd really moves. And I think that really struck some backbenchers who kind of felt that this could have been a moment where he could have made a slightly more statesman-like speech, perhaps addressing some of his failings in office. But he didn't do that. He instead talked about his legacy, the things, the big calls that he got right, and didn't really address any of the things that we've been writing about, certainly for the last couple of months.
No, he absolutely didn't. And Alison, the front page of your paper this morning, it says clinging on for one last party. And we're told that that's what he wants to do. He wants to have a big wedding. I mean, he's already married, but he wants to have a giant second wedding party.
Yes. So him and Carrie got married during when there were COVID restrictions, and they could only have 30 people. And I mean, as I think if there's one thing that we've learned about this Prime Minister is he does like a party, as does his wife. Indeed. And so they have already planned a big, lavish do at Chequers in the countryside for the end of this month. And this is coming from a very good source within the Conservative Party, who says that part of the reason that he wants to stay is that they can go ahead with the big party because the invite's already been sent out.
Right, that is quite fascinating. And you do wonder, Carolyn, what is, that is so bizarre, but what is next for both of them? Because she didn't really sign up for this, did she? I mean, all smiles yesterday, smiling with the little baby when they all lined up to see him make that speech. But this really wasn't how I would imagine she'd want it to pan out.
No, exactly. I mean, if you think about where we were, it's extraordinary to think about it. 2 years in office and, not a huge amount of time into that first term of office with an 80-seat majority, an extraordinary achievement for any Conservative Prime Minister. And you would have thought that when they moved into Downing Street, thought they were going to be there for a number of years. Indeed, I guess that's why they did so much to refurbish the flat to make it as comfortable for themselves as they possibly could. And yet, very quickly, they find themselves out of office. And I mean, you have to reflect on that. I mean, I've been writing about these scandals as well, but there is a real human story here as well about this young couple that moved into this flat. They've had 2 children since they moved in there. And I know as a mum just how extraordinary these weeks affect us when we're kind of juggling things. Just imagine for them, he's lost his job and he's lost his home, and they're now going to be looking both for new jobs, new incomes to keep their lifestyle on the road, but also a new home as well.
You do wonder, don't you, Alison, what they will do? I mean, people have sort of said that she'll be steaming the wallpaper off the walls because it cost a fortune, an absolute fortune. But what do they do? I mean, is he employable and is she?
Yeah, well, I think, so Carrie's already got a job. And then, I mean, one of the issues that I think they struggled with was they didn't see that they had enough money coming in for the amount of money they like spending. They clearly like spending.
Right.
There's more details come out this morning about the cost of some of the work they did on the Downing Street flat, and there's a £7,000 rug and there's an £8,000 lamp. I mean, who has an £8,000 lamp and £800 for a roll of wallpaper? So you've got to be earning quite a lot of money to sustain that lifestyle. And I think as Prime Minister, that wasn't the kind of income that Boris Johnson wanted. And so now there's the thought that he could earn as much money as like £10 million a year by doing after-dinner speeches, writing, books. He's got a book half finished on Shakespeare that he was supposedly trying to finish when he should have been in some of those COVID meetings at the beginning. So there's lots of opportunities for him. I mean, he will make a lot of money into the future. So
do you think people will pay fortunes to listen to him?
I think after dinner speeches, he was already earning a lot of money doing that before he became Prime Minister, and now he'll have even more.
God, that's fascinating. Do you think that's likely to happen, Caroline? Do you think that's the way he can go? He can just make speeches, write books, forever?
That's certainly what he hopes to do. But I think with every Prime Minister, they also want to have a legacy, don't they? And I think like many former prime ministers before him, he'll both be keeping an eye on the money, but he'll also want to have a profile, which will be made all the more difficult by the amazing scoops that Alison's paper had been breaking around Partygate. But I think what we'll see in the next couple of months, I think, even if he remains in Downing Street as he wishes to until the autumn, is that he'll try and do something a bit more on the international stage to try and capitalise, I think, on what he thinks has been the right calls that he made on the Ukraine. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we start to see him jetting around the world. But I think Alison's right. I mean, I think the after-dinner speaking engagements will come flooding in, and I think he'll be doing those kind of speeches in the States and abroad as well. And also, as she rightly says, writing books. He had a very successful career as a journalist, writing for the Telegraph, those columns. There'll be a big question mark as to whether he returns to that paper that was recently called his real boss.
Interesting, isn't it? And Alison, there's a rare old motley crew all jockeying for position now to see who's going to be his successor. Who do you think is more likely? Can we call it at this point?
I think it's very early to call. They're saying it's almost like a grand national at the moment. There's so many people involved. It could be just absolute chaos at the beginning. But they want to try and whittle it down. Ben Wallace, Defence Secretary, I mean, he's done extremely well during Ukraine, so he's very popular. Rishi Sunak, I think, is more popular with the wider public than he is within the Conservative Party. And you've got to remember that whoever wins, it's not up to any of us. So it's only really up to that about 100,000 people who are members of the Conservative Party.
Yes, they're the ones that will decide,
yeah.
I guess. Carolyn, is your money on anyone in particular, or is it too early?
It's just too early to say. We don't know who's going to run. There are still deals to be cut amongst the candidates because they'll want to try and whittle it down. So you may see some people on kind of joint tickets. I mean, I think Rishi Sunak is probably the most well-known individual, but I do wonder whether we will still see the kind of Brexit argument played out as well. We know the membership is more pro-Brexit than necessarily the wider party in Parliament. And so I think it will really depend on who makes that final two. If, of course, they don't change the rules, and there has been a lot of talk about doing that to try and truncate the process and just leave it to MPs to make the decision. But as things stand with the Constitution, those final two will go to the country with hustings. It'll be up to the membership. And I still think that if it goes to the membership, you'll see whoever is the most pro-Brexit candidate winning ultimately.
Interesting. Caroline, thank you very much indeed. And Alison, looks like he's going to be here until perhaps October.
I think it might be sooner than that. I think there's a now real push to get it sorted out for when the world goes back to normal at the beginning of September.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.